Hello, and welcome to this episode of Online Store Success with me, your host, Jody Minto. I'm so excited today because I have one of my long-term students and clients, Marlena, joining us for a Meet the Founder episode. Marlena has been working with me on and off, I don't know, it's been years, I think, through different programs and the mastermind, and has the most incredible brand that we're going to share more about that, as well as we're going to uncover some of Marlena's wins, challenges, lessons, flailings, and any advice she'd give to not only her former self, but anyone else that is in the midst of building their own brand. Let's get into it. Let me introduce you to the beautiful Marlena. Thank you so much for being here, Marlena. Thank you.
Hi, Jody. Thank you so much for having me.
Now, you are very intriguing and mysterious, and I know you are often living sometimes here, sometimes there. Where are you dialing in from today?
So I'm in France at the moment.
I love
That's where
that.
so it's morning for me.
Amazing. Well, thank you. Thank you for being here nice and early in the morning. Originally from Sydney, Australia, though, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I was born
Yeah.
and raised in Sydney, and that's where I founded my brand.
Awesome. So your brand is Horizon Athletic. Tell us a little bit about the backstory of how that came to be. When did this idea pop into your mind? Like, you know what, I'm going to start this beautiful brand and I'm going to go all in. Tell us a little bit about how it came to be.
I've always wanted to study fashion. Fashion was something I wanted to study. I had grown up, I think it's the Australian culture doing like multiple sports from a young age. And then, even like once I started university, I was still doing like sports and things like that. So then I studied business and finance. And while I was studying, I had this desire to do fashion. So once I finished my degrees, my auntie works in the fashion industry. So I came to her with an idea. I wanted to start a swimwear brand. She said to me, okay. So she started to teach me all the stages to actually build a swimwear brand. While I was, starting the swimwear collection, I started to sort of, tap into, designing activewear because I was wearing it all the time, every day, for going to the gym, for walking, for running, for everything that, I do.
Yeah.
So then I started to sort of expand the swimwear brand into sportswear, and she pretty much taught me how to, start with the designs, the patterns, and how to sample the fit, and then, how to even run the production side of it, like do the tech sheets and everything. So yeah, she taught me how to do all of it. So I started it off as like a side thing, while
Right.
I was working, full time in accounting. And then, over time, it's now become, like I would say half of my time is just running the brand, and then the other half is, still doing, my accounting, position.
Sort of went into the corporate world in accounting, and you're like, you had this. Did you say it was an auntie that was a dressmaker and helped guide you with your fashion
Yeah.
startup? Amazing! Wow, what an incredible a gift to have someone in the industry.
Yeah.
That's so amazing. So tell us a little bit about Horizon Athletic. Like, what's it all about? What's the brand ethos? What are the values? What do you stand for?
So I founded the brand in Australia. So I was always like an enthusiast about Australian made. So
Mhm.
I managed as much as I could to manage, the Australian manufacturing has been a big element of the brand. And I still, to this day, I still produce my swimwear in Australia. So I built it on sustainability. I only use
Yeah.
sustainable fabrics. I produce in small quantities. I produce in, factories where I actually have I wouldn't say a personal relationship, but I have like a friendly relationship with them. So they're not like people that, I just met like
Just
online and I've
total
never seen
strangers.
where
Yeah.
where they
Yeah.
work or anything like
Yeah.
that. So yeah, and I built it on athleticism. Like the brand sort of has that sort of sporting element to sort of push, women to sort of, push their limits and, achieve their goals. So it's a really like I'd say holistic kind of brand.
Mm. It's incredible. And for anyone listening, we will link, of course, Marlena's links to her business and her Instagram. Um, Talk to us a little bit more about Australian made, because I know that's a dream for many fashion designers listening and out there. But the reality sounds like it's really, really challenging. What's your experience been with finding reputable Australian made manufacturers and also like keeping things affordable without prices blowing out?
Yeah, look, Australian made is quite expensive. Obviously, we have a good living standard in Australia. We have good salaries, so that's relative to, you know, what the product, the cost of production will be. Swimwear isn't too bad because we iconically are known for swimwear as Australians. So there is quite a few of, swimwear manufacturers still in Australia. Fashion, like when you start to go into fashion, I think that's when it kind of gets a bit more tricky. But
Okay.
I think our biggest problem, what I've noticed with Australian fashion industry, is the textiles. We don't have that much textile production. So we don't
Mm,
produce as much fabrics. We do have like merino wool, which we supply, and a lot of that gets exported and then, turned into fabric outside of Australia and then imported back in as fabric. But yeah, our textile production is quite limited. So a lot of our textiles, I would say, still will still come from, overseas. We
hmm.
don't produce much fabrics here. Um, Swimwear is one fabric that you can still, find sources, because I feel like we still have, it's not as big as it used to be, but we still kind of have a swimwear manufacturing industry in Australia.
Great. Okay. And I don't know because you're dialing in from France, the athletic wear. So that's made in France?
So that's made in Italy. I source
Italy.
all my fabrics from Italy. So
Hmm.
I like source the fabric in Italy, and then it doesn't take long to then take the fabric to the factory in order to produce the garment. So it's all quite local.
Yeah, great. So you split your manufacturing based on the product. So swimwear category made in Australia, and then the activewear is made in Italy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing. And I know that you are very involved in the manufacturing process, which is why you're, in Europe and you go and oversee and meet with your supply, your manufacturers and whatnot there. Like in my eyes, that's like living the dream. And I'm sure for many dialing into being able to go and see it, happening in real time, sounds incredible. Talk us through, I mean, because I know your brand is quite international in that you've even got your products available on marketplaces in different countries. Tell us a little bit about where you currently sell, what countries, and what that all looks like.
So I sell predominantly online.
Hmm.
All my sales are like B2C.
Hmm.
So in Australia, I'm online on my own website, which is horizonathletic.com. Europe, because it's, like it's a
Mm.
bigger population, a bit more complex. There's a bit more regulations because between countries are different tax rates and things like that. I'm on marketplaces over there. So on Zalando, About You, Avocado Store, and Browninger. I initially started off in Germany because that's where the dominant marketplaces are. And now
Okay.
I've expanded into the French marketplaces. So yeah, that's where the brand's listed. And then hopefully the next step would be to sort of expand into the American market, because I feel like as a swimwear and activewear brand, it kind of fits well into their culture.
Tell us about some of the biggest challenges you've had in your business to date.
I think my biggest struggle was building the momentum.
Okay.
It takes quite a lot of time to actually get that consistent, um, momentum going. And it
Mm,
takes, I would say it really requires you to sort of build it. Like, I don't think that's something that you can really pass on to someone else, and you can sort of get, advice and feedback, but it really does require you to do it because you sort of need to, backtrack the brand
yeah.
to identify its unique selling points. And it's only like you can only really tell the story for the brand because it's you yourself that, founded the brand.
So
Um,
true.
yeah, so building the momentum, it takes time, it takes a lot of patience, it takes, showing up every day. Bit by bit, you will start to see the brand, growing. And then once you start to see sort of the trends, then you kind of know moving like to next year, when to optimize budgets or when to,
Mm,
cut budgets, because you know that these are the periods where, my brand does the best. So this is the time that I would invest in, marketing,
yeah.
say ads, or, to really make the most of sales. This is the time where, the brand is slower. So you sort of, like cut back on the marketing budget, focus on building content, building creatives, doing some more background work, working on developing new collections. So yeah, it kind of gives you that insight. And I think that sort of takes a lot of time and experience
Mm.
to sort of understand.
Yeah, and I think it takes a lot of refinement, right? Like
Yeah.
often when we launch any kind of new business, we're like, well, this is who we think our customers are. This is who we're going to market ourselves to. These are the products we think they'll like. And it's not until you actually put yourself out there and start trading and getting that intel, that feedback around actually, no, I know this was the case in my fashion brand where I thought I was selling to a 35-year-old, and it turns out I was selling to her mum, right? I was completely off by a whole generation. So I didn't know, you don't know these things until you start putting yourself out there and starting to take notice of what's happening and then refining. I know you recently went through a little bit of a rebranding, a refresh of a rebrand, and really zeroing in on those styles and those hero products that your customers know and love. And that, like you said, it takes time, right? And it just takes that consistency and that evolution, and just keep on trying and testing and testing and testing to see what sort of sticks and what starts moving the needle. So it's interesting. Have you had any like major disasters with whether it's like manufacturing or like a $50,000 website bill that then you rebuilt like a year later or anything like that to think that you can think of?
Look, there's been a lot of like hiccups along the way.
Mm.
I think my biggest disaster was when my warehouse was burnt down.
Oh, what?
And then I
What
lost
happened
all
to
my
that?
stock. Because then during that
No.
time, I had like 6 months with like no stock, pretty much just sitting there waiting while I developed the next collection to replenish my stock. So yeah, that would say was my biggest disaster.
What happened? Where was the warehouse? Where was the factory?
So the warehouse was it was like in Sydney, and it was
Oh, right.
actually in an office, like an office, a commercial residence.
Uh-huh.
And it was in the back, and I had like everything like sorted with, containers, lots, the whole thing. And then so that was like the commercial residence was the floor ground, which was the street level.
Yeah.
Then further, like on top, there was, I think, residential level. I don't know if there was another one on top, but on top of that, there was like a residential level.
Hmm.
And what happened was, like, so in that street, we had hairdressers, we had nail salons, we had architects, we had restaurants, we had like everything, post
Yeah.
office, everything. Now, I'm not sure exactly what happened, but the house on top of the office,
Oh,
had a fire, and then the fire, it pretty much started to burn down a
no.
clear ground into our floor.
Oh my God.
And obviously, like plastic burns,
Oh
melt. So
no.
as the fire just kept going, and then that
Oh
was
my
it.
gosh. How did you bounce back from that? Like, 6 months, no stock, probably a lot of money, depending on insurance situations, right? Like, hey, what do? You just dust off and rebuild and go, okay, well, we just keep going.
Yeah, so luckily I did have stock in Europe at that time, so I did move a bit of stock to Australia. Um, so I still had the European side running, but Australia is our dominant market, so it was a
Mm.
big hit for like 6 months. And that's when I lost my presence. I was originally on the Iconic, so I lost my presence on the Iconic because I
Oh
didn't have stock to sell anymore.
no.
So then I got delisted, well, put on hold at the moment off the Iconic. So yeah, anyway, and then I just kept working on, collections after collections, and then just
Keep
bounced
going.
back from that.
You're still here. Well, good on you. Tell us about the experience of selling on Iconic. What did that look like?
I don't want to say anything bad about the Iconic.
No, 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 no. I love the Iconic, but
I
yeah,
don't-
but
Look, I
from
think
a
it was a
business or a
great,
brand.
yeah, it was a great opportunity. I started back there in 2018. I think at that time they were really taking on sustainable brands, and I was a
Mm-hmm.
sustainable brand, so they really loved having me on there. But I think over the years, I started to notice that the trend in the Iconic kind of shifted.
Mm-hmm.
I found it became more like I don't know what
Fast
you would
fashion
say. I don't
or
want to say in a bad way or anything, but I
mm,
think it became more like, I wouldn't say it really favored or it really helped smaller niche brands.
yeah,
I think it became a bit more mainstream.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
For
So
already well-known big brands, all under the one roof, a little
yeah.
bit
Like
like
I remember,
Maya from David Jones, I suppose.
yeah, because I remember like when the Iconic first launched, she had like Sass and Bite on there. You had, I don't know if there was even, I'm not sure if Cinnamon was on there, but they had like a
Mm,
part of their store which was kind of
okay.
a luxury sort of edit where
Yeah.
they had all those brands. And then I kind of like, as over the years, I kind of decided to see that the shift in the brands was more mainstream and
Definitely more
less,
mainstream. Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Less
like designer.
boutique.
Yeah,
Mm,
boutique, exactly.
okay. Um, Talk to us a little bit about what your sort of team operations looks like now, because obviously you are international, yourself and your business. Like, what does your team look like as far as, operations and things? Is it all just you, or do you have helpers, and what does that look like?
So I've kept everything quite minimal, like lean
Mm-hmm.
and minimal. I haven't taken on too many people. I do have someone that runs the warehouse in Australia.
Okay.
And then in Europe, I'm predominantly running all the productions, overseeing all the collections. I have someone that does the fitting and the pattern making for the swimwear styles in Australia. I do have someone that cuts the fabric and a manufacturer in Australia. And the good thing is those three people have a working relationship with each other, so they're able to flow through the stages of production.
Great.
In Europe, I'm pretty much regulating everything, like directing everything. I have the factory in Italy that produces, the activewear and manages the product development. And then I'm the one that sources the fabrics, purchases the fabrics, selects the fabrics. I'm also the one doing the commercial side, finding new marketplaces to put the brand on. I'm doing, directing all the content shoots and the e-commerce content shoots.
Mm-hmm.
Doing all the networking, finding
Yeah.
influencers. So I'm pretty much managing all of it. I'm also even editing videos, editing
Yeah,
images,
right.
editing creatives. So it's
Okay.
quite a lot. But the thing is, I actually enjoy doing all of this. Sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming because there's so much to do,
Mm,
especially like the sort of the admin stuff, like all those
yeah.
Excel spreadsheets that you have to get in and like put all the information in. Like that can be a bit draining and like I
Yeah.
don't know, like it's not that enjoyable. But apart from that, like enjoying developing the collections, creating the content, like that's I find is the most like enjoyable part.
Awesome. So very lean. You're wearing a lot of hats. But I probably too from your accounting background, it will probably no doubt stay like that. Accountants generally don't like to spend too much money if they don't need to. So those skills, I'm sure, are serving you really well in your business, and it's great that you love you know which parts you love. I know for me, one of the first things I outsourced was the customer service. The customer service really gets me. Like, where's my order? Will this fit me? I want to return it and things like that. Are you still handling that yourself?
Yeah, I'm still handling it. But Shopify has expanded like so much
Mm,
over the years that it's made it so seamless. Like they can submit their returns, the returns go to the warehouse,
mm.
they get
Yeah,
processed. It's like it's
all the
easy
automation
automatic
that's built
now.
in.
Like it
Yeah, yeah,
wasn't like
yeah,
the old days where a customer would have to contact you for a
yeah,
return.
yeah,
So now Shopify does it all. Like, yeah,
yeah.
it's much
Great.
easier.
Yeah, awesome. If only I had that in my business. I know the little Shaun the sheep. Well, I call him Shaun the sheep. The little Shopify AI built-in AI guy. Some of the different nicknames that floating around from him inside of the mastermind, but he's great too. Like inside of your Shopify dashboard, you can go in and
Yeah.
go, "Hey, tell me which was like the most successful month I've had in my business year to date," and you can pull all the numbers, the data. Apparently, you can even code and change things on your website. So it's definitely come leaps and bounds as far from when I was doing it. Um, Tell me about some of the biggest wins or times where you're like, I'm so proud of myself. Like, I've come so far. I've overcome fires and burning all of my stock and all of the different things. Like, tell me about a time where you're like, yeah, I'm so glad I took this road. I'm so glad I diverted from my corporate and I'm here now. Talk to me about that.
So my biggest wins or my biggest win is really when I see the customers happy with the product, because I feel like for me that's what brings me the most joy. That I've developed something, because I know that I'm the one, because I'm very hands-on. So I've gone through the whole process to develop that product, like the fitting, selecting the fabrics, making sure that the construction is optimal, like all of adding these extra elements that I know customers would want from a pair of leggings or a sports bra. So when I see customers saying, "Oh, I love the fit, I love the fabric, I love that you have this, on the garment," that really makes me happy, because it's like all that hard work
Oh,
that I've put
yeah.
in, like I can
Someone
actually see,
recognizing it.
yeah,
Yeah.
like I'm recognizing the benefits that it is doing for someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. I know I always love seeing like in the shopping center, I'd like walk past someone and they're wearing one of my products and say, "Oh my God, oh my gosh, oh my God." Or like my kids would see someone and like trying to take a sneaky photo of some lady wearing my thing. Have you experienced that yet? Where you like want to run up to someone and go,
No,
"Hey, I designed that. I made that."
no, like I haven't seen anyone wearing my product. I have those seen people like on social media, like just flicking through wearing my product. But I did
Mm.
have once, I was doing Illustrator course with someone, and she saw someone wearing my one piece swimsuit, because she would go swimming. She saw someone wearing my one piece swimsuit swimming, and then she went up to her and said to her, "I know this brand, I know the founder.
Oh,
I'm teaching her, how to use Illustrator." And she goes, "Oh, I love this one piece." And this was like one of our older collections that I didn't re-release it again. And she's like, "Yeah, every time I go back on the store, like she doesn't have that product anymore,
oh
because
no.
it was from a much older collection."
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. That is so cool. So tell me, what's next for Horizon Athletic? What's on the cards?
So the next step is obviously just to continue growing and expanding internationally. So I hopefully find a strategy to sort of break into the US market. Europe, because I've been living in Europe, so it's made it much easier for me to crack into the European market. It would have been much harder if I wasn't, here.
Hmm.
But yeah, so that would be the next step, is to expand into to new markets.
Okay. Any sort of category expansion or product expansions in the pipeline?
Yes, so when I was working with you, we discussed like what are our, best sellers, what are our, core products. So next collection's coming. I will be sort of expanding into a bit more out of fashion. I wouldn't say
Hmm.
it's resort, but like more overlays.
Okay.
just swimwear, but like
Yeah.
and activewear, but swimwear and activewear with like overlays.
Amazing. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
So good. Well, thank you so, so very much for being here and sharing your founder story with us today. I know, like, I feel like we know we've known each other for a long time, and you've been through a number of my programs. For anyone listening that's wondering, is this Jody woman for me? Is this mastermind for me? What would you say to them, and what was your experience like?
Um, Look, it depends on where you're at.
Mm,
With your brand. Now, if you haven't started the brand, like if you're still in the development phase, I suggest that you start off with maybe like the online store
Store
success.
success, of course, yeah.
Because that will be great to sort of teach you the background information that you
Mm,
need to
yeah,
sort of build the website, to sort of position your price point, to sort of create your content, because you need all of that to sort of
yeah.
initially set up the brand DNA. If you've set the brand up and you want to tap into advertising, which I think you should, because I really feel like that's just the way forward now with fashion
Mm,
and shopping. I know that I don't know if you still do the e-commerce academy, because I remember
yes, I
doing that, and I
do. Yeah,
seriously teaches you all the ins and the outs of
yeah,
the meta ads. Like you learn and you understand. Once you do that, you'll understand how meta ads work.
yeah.
On all the different types of creatives. If you set up, you've started the ads, but now you sort of want to expand a bit more and like grow the brand, then the mastermind is great, because you meet other, e-commerce founders, other business
Mm,
um minded people in the group, and they will support you and help you and give you advice and feedback. And it's a great way for you to also to just get that support and communicate, because not many people will understand your struggles
mm.
and sort of understand sort of where you're at to sort of give you the right advice. So when you're in that kind of group or that community, you kind of get that support that you need, which is amazing. And then you get that consistent support to keep growing.
Amazing. Thank you. Yeah, we I do all those programs are still and still in existence. We have online store success, which is those foundational e-com elements like you mentioned, and to get you to that 10K month sort of point. And then I've got Ecom Ads Academy. There's another live round coming in end of July. There's a waitlist open at the moment where we just zero in on making sure that you're confident in running your own ads yourself, your meta ads. And then the mastermind, which is you've got all those elements in play, and now it's time to scale things up towards 7 figures. That's where the mastermind comes in. And I know it's been my absolute pleasure having you in all of those different programs. And we do miss you in the mastermind very much. But we love cheering you on from the sidelines and seeing your success, and can't wait to see what's next.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So lovely to catch up with you. And don't forget, everyone, I will link everything of Marlena's in the show notes. And I can't wait to chat with you all again next week. Bye for now. And thank you again, Marlena.
Thank you, Jody. Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.